Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. In the beginning, the Garden of Eden stood as a realm, untouched by time, a sacred place where heaven touched earth. God, in his sovereign artistry, shaped man from the dust a creature, both fragile and eternal. Into this being, he breathed his own breath, and the man became a living soul. His name was Adam, and he was placed within Eden to tend it, to protect it, and to enjoy it as a divine gift. The garden itself was not merely beautiful. It was living poetry. Trees bore fruit in vibrant color, rivers flowed in crystalline splendor, and the air carried the scent of life itself. In Eden, every creature moved without fear. Harmony was not just an idea, but a reality. Yet even in this paradise, something was incomplete. God declared it was not good for man to be alone. So from Adam's side, while he slept in divine stillness, God took a rib and formed a woman. She was not drawn from the soil as he had been, but from his very flesh of him, yet distinct. When Adam awoke and saw her, he knew her instantly. Bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, he said, not with ownership, but with recognition. She was named woman, for she had come from man. Together, they walked Eden's paths in innocence. Naked, yet unashamed. They bore no guilt, no fear, no shadow of death. They lived in full communion with each other and with God, who would walk with them in the cool of the day, speaking not from a distance, but as a father and friend. They were free to eat from every tree of the garden, save one, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Of this tree, God commanded, they must not eat, for the day they did, they would surely die. This command was not a trap, but a boundary, a sacred line between trust and rebellion. In the center of Eden also stood the tree of life, whose fruit offered something beyond mere existency, continued communion with the divine presence. But into the stillness crept a voice, not of God. The serpent, more cunning than any beast of the field, spoke not with overt evil, but with questions wrapped in Did God really say you must not eat from any tree? He asked Eve. She answered, affirming the command. Yet already the seeds of doubt were sown. The serpent twisted the truth. You will not surely die. God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like him, knowing good and evil. What was offered was not simply fruited, was the illusion of autonomy, the temptation to define good and evil by their own will, rather than by God's. Eve looked again. The fruit was pleasing to the eye, desirable for gaining wisdom. She took and ate, and she gave some to Adam, who was with her. He ate, not with resistance, but with silent complicity. And in that moment, everything changed. Their eyes were opened, but not to enlightenment. They saw their nakedness, and with it, vulnerability, shame, fear. They stitched fig leaves together, trying to cover what they never noticed before. Innocence was lost. Guilt had entered the world. When they heard the sound of God walking in the garden, they hid among the trees. The communion that once brought joy now provoked dread. Where are you? God called not in ignorance, but with invitation. He already knew their location, but he wanted them to recognize their fault. Adam stepped forward. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. God asked, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from? Adam deflected. The woman you gave me, she gave me the fruit. God turned to Eve. What have you done? She replied, the serpent deceived me, and I ate. In that tragic exchange, blame replaced unity. Trust was fractured. Sin had entered, not only their hearts, but the very fabric of creation. And so came the divine judgment. To the serpent, God spoke a curse. Cursed are you above all livestock. You will crawl on your belly and eat dust all your days. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. In this judgment was hidden a promise, the first whisper of redemption, that one day a descendant of the woman would undo what the serpent had begun. To the woman, pain was multiplied in childbirth, and yet the longing for union would remain. To the man, the ground was cursed. Work would now be toilsome. Thorns and thistles competing with the fruit of labor. From dust he had come, and to dust he would return. But even as God pronounced consequence, he did not abandon. He made garments of skin for Adam and Eve, clothing them more fully than they could clothe themselves, a symbolic act of covering their shame. Blood had been shed to cover sin, the first foreshadowing of sacrifice. Then God said, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not reach out and take from the tree of life and live forever. And so, the gates of Eden closed. Cherubim with flaming swords were stationed to guard the way to the tree of life. Exile began. But exile was not the end, for even outside the garden, God's voice would continue to call. He would still walk with those who sought him, still offer hope beyond the curse. Adam and Eve stepped into a world, now marred by consequence, yet not forsaken. They carried with them memory of what had been and what was lost, and they carried a promise a child would one day come, and through pain, through conflict, through generations, he would restore what had been broken. Their story is not merely ancient, it is our story the moment. Humanity chose self over trust, knowledge over communion, autonomy over relationship, but it is also the beginning of redemption, the first movement in the divine symphony of grace.